In this video, I want to talk about how banks are battling for work from home employees, right? Who's going to win? And now it's a very interesting dynamic because in previous videos, I covered JP Morgan, right? And JP Morgan was kind of keen on employees being in the office 5 days a week. They didn't want any people working from home. And the whole point here is to ensure the corporate simps out there don't return to the office, right? Work from home if you can. Don't just give in to your employer and go to work to the office just for the sake of it, right? In the first article, we're going to cover Citi, right? Citi, again, Citigroup or Citibank. Essentially, they are focused on not pushing people to return to the office, at least for now, and they're hoping to get top talent from other banks. And this is something I want to focus on because lots of people, and particularly on my channel, we talk generally about employee rights, even though we aren't like some left-wing extremist type of organization. But employee rights come down to standing your ground in a sense, right? And I'm not saying everyone can do that. I know some people are going to return to the office and it depends on personal circumstances, but if you stand your ground, then it puts these major corporations under some pressure to really think what they're doing, right? That's why there are people who at JP Morgan on company forums or outside of the company. There's massive messaging and networking groups where people are just like looking for remote jobs or finding a different way out. And like I say, companies are going to have to compete on some level where people are just going to say, well, I'm not necessarily moving for a higher salary. I'm moving for more work from home. And some of these smaller companies will do it, but also some big companies will also consider this, right? So that's basically the headline here. You can see here that's the CEO right now, Jane Fraser, I believe, right? So let's go and dig into this a bit deeper. What's actually going on here? So we've got this example of how Citi has poaching people from these other major banks, right? So as I mentioned before, JP Morgan is demanding employees to work in the office 5 days a week. And when we compare that to other banks like Citi, they want people to focus on being able to, like I say, work from home if they want. And many people are just fed up at JP Morgan, right? They don't want to work in the office all the time. They'd rather, send out new resumes and find a new job rather than commute every day to the office because it does bother them, right? Companies are going to end up competing for top talent in some sense for people who maybe have high skills and are willing to negotiate for themselves to be able to work from home on a more consistent basis. Citi CEO Jane Fraser has told Citi that people can continue to work from home at least 2 days a week for the foreseeable future. She also declared this policy to be a competitive advantage and a recruitment tool because other people want that flexibility to be able to work from home, of course, right? So like I say, Goldman Sachs, JPM, Morgan Stanley, a lot of these people are going to effectively lose at least some employees who are going to move to work in alternative locations like Citi because they can work from home. Now, while I think she's making a good point here, and this is a good strategy, it seems somewhat manipulative, right? There could be other instances about what's actually going on here. So let's dig a bit deeper. Here it says the bonuses at that bank where Citigroup or Citibank where people can work from home 2 days a week. There's lots of internal tension going on. I covered in other videos how there's more layoffs. They have 20,000 people that they want to lay off. There's all sorts of internal scandals going on. Here we have a bit of info about the bonuses, right? So it's saying London bonuses at Citi were abysmal. People were indirectly told that in order to keep their job, they have to accept a lower bonus because the company can't afford to pay them a big bonus like other banks. And many departments didn't receive any salary increases. So it's another way of saying, well, maybe they're offering work from home because this bank knows that, well, they're not going to have the flexibility to offer other benefits like financial benefits of higher salaries and bigger bonuses. At least they can offer work from home to keep their current employees rather than these employees moving to another bank to get higher salary who don't mind being in the office. So there could be like ulterior motives for what's actually going on here, right? And then there's other little section here that makes you think about what's actually going on. Now, another way of looking at this kind of approach to have more flexible working and let people work from home is like, is it a setup for massive job cuts, right? Here we can see here, Citi has still to cut 10,000 jobs. The bank has a controversial appraisal process under which employees in each team are put in one of 4 brackets, and managers are told that only 15% can be exemplary or top employees, and no more of 30% can exceed expectations, which means the majority of people people in a team are going to be listed as average or below average, right? 55% of people. Now, to put that simply, what it sounds like is that they're having a setup for massive job cuts. They're rejigging how they do their performance reviews, so majority of employees are appearing as average or below average, and also they're shifting that definition. Also, then when you mix in the fact that you have a lot of work from home, in the future, if they want to move people to the office, then you're going to have a lot of employees they can easily justify from a legal perspective, from an employee legal perspective, that they're following the law, they've reviewed employee performance, it's not good enough, they want to work from home, we want them to return to the office maybe in the future, and they're not doing that, so we're going to fire them because they're not playing along with what we're saying. So it's worthwhile reading in between the lines what's actually going on at a company. Are they really setting up people to be laid off? Are they giving work from home benefits because they're not going to pay employees a fair salary compared to the rest of the market? So it really does make you think about what's actually going on at this particular bank. Now, on the topics of job cuts at Citi, right, we're going to dig a bit deeper here because it says here, Citi always planned 20,000 layoffs and only around a half of them were executed under this project called Bora, where they're supposedly improving efficiency at their banks. They're going to be firing a lot of employees. So that would imply that, okay, they've let go of 10,000 employees so far. They've got 10,000 left to, of course, hit 20,000 as their total goal. So that will imply that they're still going to make some cuts this year. And how would that actually be targeted, right? So they did the math here in this article. They really tried to think it through. How many employees should we actually be cutting, or could they be cutting, right? So someone did the math. They're like, oh, if we've got about 10,000 employees, they want to save about this much money, or they're going to spend about 600 million on severance, of giving people layoff packages. That would infer that roughly, they're going to cut people at the middle and back office level, typical people who are earning around, 100,000 US dollars or around that. So that's a good indication, right? If you're working at Citi, also if you're other banks, because banks tend to copy each other, major corporations copy each other. If one bank says people go back to the office, typically other banks would. One bank's making cuts, other people will be making job cuts too. So what it estimates here is that based on this calculation, a lot of the job cuts will be for the middle and back office, right? People on low six figures typically, right? Based on how much money they're going to pay for layoff packages, which are dependent on how much salary people are earning. So it's worthwhile considering that, if you're in middle or back office roles, if you're at a mid-level, VP level, depending on what the role would be, around the low six figures, those are typically the people in their 30s at the middle level who are kind of struggling, who will probably be let go in the firings that Citi will probably do later in the year. So it's worthwhile considering what's actually going on, because Citigroup is firing a lot of people, right? So are they letting people work from home because they want to save money on office space? There could be all type of ulterior motives, and it's rarely just to look out for the employees' best interests. Here it says here, managing directors in the wealth and technology units are leaving the firm, and Citi is also axing people from a team that compiles data and analysis on the bank's clients. So like wealth management, the tech department, data analyst cuts, these are the type of things they're doing. And in the background, there's something interesting going on, because what they're actually doing is they're actually building a new office. So what it seems like is they're allowing people to work from home, like Citi or like JP Morgan was letting people work from home until they built their new office. So JP Morgan in New York, they were building their new office. It's kind of ready. In March, like this time of year right now, they're forcing people to go back to the office 5 days a week. And I'm sure Citi will do the same, because they're actually building a new office right now. They want you to kind of be a slave in the office all the time. If you're interested in that, check out my videos on JP Morgan. But it says here in a bit of detail, right? In London, Citi seems to be giving it a try. Back in 2022, when renovations in Canary Wharf, which is like Wall Street in London, they were working on making it the best building in banking. They want to have all these type of features like the JP Morgan building that we covered in another video, mini villages, well-being zones, winter garden. Of course, they'll have a workplace gym and all these other type of things. The thing is, when people go to work, they want to work and they want to live their life outside of work, right? It's like, I'm going to work, it's a fair transaction. I work, you pay me, right? I work for you and you pay me, right? Exchanging time for money, work for money. Just let me go home, and people can do that in their own time, right? They don't want to go to work and be like, we have a well-being zone here, we have a winter garden here. Why don't you spend all your time socializing at work, where you have to censor all your thoughts and opinions because you don't want to offend anyone or be falsely accused of being cancelled and things like that, right? People can do this all in their own time, right? And it reminds me, when I see this, how all these banks are building these over-the-top offices. Citi is building this or refurbishing its major London office. which you can see is going to house lots of people based on the size. It's quite a big building in London. And it cost them a lot of money. And this is the thing, right? It cost them a lot of money, and they were doing it during the lockdown, which means they knew, once things open up, they were going to push people back to the office. Working from home for many major companies, a long-term goal, right? It's something they're doing temporary. Only smaller companies, or what I'd consider real companies, not these big corporations, effectively fronts for the deep state. And I'm sure they're not completely profitable. They might be getting money from the back end from US governments and other entities. I don't think they're fully independent. That's why they're not focused on saving costs, because if they were genuine focused on saving costs, they will let a lot more people work from home, right? It says here that the building that they're building to force people back to the office in the future, which they're not saying now because they're letting you work from home, it cost about $1 billion, right? As you can see here, it's a 42-story building. It can fit in a lot of people, has all these different features, state-of-the-art workspace, outdoor winter gardens, as I was saying. It's a bit ridiculous. And this just shows you like what their real focus is. It's not on your freedom. And what it reminds me of actually is that when I was working at another American investment bank, which I won't name now, is that in the evenings I would go and socialize away from the office, or I'd maybe go to a gym away from the office. It's not a workplace gym. And my managing director seemed to have a problem with it, or co-workers, because what they wanted to do is they treat the workplace gym as a social event, as like a networking event. They might go to yoga classes and things like that. And the reason why it's kind of funny is that they want your entire life to revolve around the workplace and have your entire social life and identity to be based around that. And if you don't, because you want to do something else in the evening outside, beyond work colleagues, they have an issue with that. Like, I remember my senior vice president at the time passing negative comments on me because he was like, oh, you only seem to hang out with people from outside the office, right? And I was like, yeah, like, I don't know, I'm not going to spend all my evenings and weekends with co-workers. There's places of London like Hemel Hempstead, where, typically people who spend a lot more money renting an apartment would live if they work in a high-paying industry. I'm not going to go out and hang out with you like on a Saturday morning, right? I'm just not going to do that. You don't pay me enough to do that, and I don't want to be dealing with co-workers outside of work hours, if we're honest. So it really does make you think about like what's going on. But if we compare this to Barclays, which is another major bank, of course, and they're actually changing what they're doing. What they're doing here at Barclays is they're another major bank that are encouraging employees to be in the office at least 3 days a week. In recent years, they'll be letting people to work from home more often than that, right? So they have a more stricter approach, and they sent a memo to their employees, and they want people to work from home only a week rather than 3 days a week. So the general trend is pushing people back to the office, but at least there's some short-term benefits. If you don't want to be in the office 5 days a week, again, you could consider Citi or Barclays. At least for the next few years, they could have more hybrid working solutions. But the point is, right, if you want to be free, you're going to have to really think it through carefully so you can work from home. Maybe the skill set you're developing, rather than simply being a pawn of these big banks who will, really try to take advantage of you and demand you be in the office. And like I say, these aren't really profit-driven companies. When I look at this, I don't think this is a profit-driven company. I know you probably see this big building and be like, oh, they just need people in the office, right? But they don't actually. I mean, let's just look at the whole building here. Like, do you really need that many people in the office in this really high cost living area? Costs so much money for people to travel to this particular area, to go and work there. Probably have to live close to it, or they have long commutes when they can work from home. I can see here like that mid-level, they have some greenery, maybe like the indoor winter garden there. There's nothing necessarily wrong with that, but it's like people can work from home and do the exact same thing. And if you're a real profit driven company, you would say, okay, let's slash this amount of real estate cost that we have. Let's slash the commercial real estate costs we have in half. Let's have people work from home, right? And then at least you can save at least a quarter of this. You don't need of people in the office. You can have people hot desking. But this is what I mean. These major banks, these major corporations, allegedly, speculation of course, they're not legit profit-driven companies. I don't believe that in the slightest. There must be back doors where they're getting money, like I say, from the deep state or whatever other entities. They're just a front. They're like a cartel, right? And I think you should just think carefully, like what you want to do in the long term. And I'm not saying these jobs are bad or that you can't make a lot of money doing them. Just really try to read in between the lines of what's going on. So in the short term, of course, reap the benefits and listen to the propaganda of the AWFL, who's going to tell you, working from home is something she's so pro, but she's going to change her tune in a few years, and they'll just bring out another narrative. There's enough to put you on lockdown, a narrative to say you need to be back in the office too, right? And they just pick and choose what narrative they're going to support. Now, if you want greater control over your career and you don't want to be subject to the whims of the CEOs, I've worked at places like this, Goldman's, Morgan Stanley, and so on. I have a career coaching program, right, to help you achieve complete career control, build a path to freedom, financial independence, dealing with office politics, these crazy CEOs and so on, surviving and thriving in the workplace as a man, and preparing for promotions and how to deal with layoffs, which is going to become a common theme. You see another 10,000 people are going to lose their job at Citigroup over the next few years. So you've got a plan for your success long term. This is something I can help with. Link in description if you want to speak with me directly. 2 recommended videos on the screen right now. And let me know what you think about this, right? About the whole push to return to the office in the comments section. I'll see you next time.